Hello again, everybody. This is Derek, and I'm coming back at you with another Wargaming and miniature video. In today's video, we're going to continue on with building our terrain for our MeG project, and in today's video, we're going to actually be building a 15mm Roman town. And I'm using the forged in battle Roman town models, as you can see on the screen there. Okay, I cut out a piece of MDF. I beveled the edges. This is a 3mm MDF. Just rounded the edges as well. To bevel the edges, all I did was take a box knife like this and just whittle away at the edges, and that's what I do with all my terrain. And next, what we're going to do here is I took a 1 base width measurement, drew lines around the entire town, basically just to give me a buffer zone, an area that I could, if I needed to, deploy troops around the perimeter. And then I took my buildings and I laid them out in the town, and I drew circles around them, because that's where the town, the buildings were going to be, not circles, outlines of them, because that's where the town, where I was going to glue the buildings onto the town, and it was going to be inside that box. But I've changed my philosophy here. I'm not going to be gluing these buildings down. I'm going to be building a foundation under the buildings, so that's going to allow my buildings to be pushed out a little bit further apart, giving me a larger town square. It's gonna inch them a little closer to the edge of the town, but that's okay, because they're not going to be glued down, and as troops move through the town or whatever, I will be able to pick up and move the buildings if I needed to. So the town will basically be flat, and these will be foundational, and then the buildings will just sit on top of the foundation, not being glued. And that way, as troops move through the town, you can just pick up and shift and adjust where the buildings are, and that way you don't have to worry. I also considered putting fences and hedges and things like that in the town, but they wouldn't look right. They wouldn't be movable, and I wanted everything to be movable. Now the foundation, I'm going to be using this 2mm Cork roll that I got. I got it a while back for a dice tray that I made, and I had some scraps. So because I'm making foundations with the cork, I can actually move the buildings out a little bit closer to the edge of the building, or the town base. So I take each of the buildings and I put them on the cork, and I take my pen and I mark out a little bit of foundation. I basically just do a little trace, giving myself a little bit of a buffer, as you can see, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters, just to make the foundation a little bit larger than the building itself. And we trace out all the buildings, giving every one of them a foundation. And I decided to use the cork instead of plasticard, because I was going to do plasticard and then score into the plastic bricks or rocks and then paint it, where the cork is actually has a better looking stone at scale texture to it. So I decided just to go with the cork. Alright, so we cut out the cork. We cut out all the little different buildings, their little foundations. I used a straight edge because I wanted my cork edges to look straight. And then we take some tacky glue and I put it on the bottoms of the foundations and then we're going to glue it onto the town. Right there, and I'm going to push it a little bit. See, it goes over the line, but that's okay because as troops move through there, instead of having to squeeze them behind the building, I could just pick up and adjust and shift to the building a little bit. Now, because this cork was on a roll, it's got a bend to it, so I make sure that I put it on the inside of the bend so that when I place it onto the town base, it'll press down flat and the edges won't come up. Now I'm using tacky glue because it has a low water content, and that way it won't cause any bowing or warping with the MDF. One little small piece like this on a cork pad that's only, you know, about 50 millimeters across, that's not going to cause any bowing or warping, but I'm not taking any chances. And tacky glue will hold it in place and longer, and it will dry faster. So there we go. Press it down into place, and I put a building on it just to show you what I'm doing. And then let's go ahead and do a second one. Now when spreading the glue, I'm having to use my Mark II glue applicator, my thumb, which normally I use the Mark I, my forefinger, but it's got an injury and you can see it's covered. I have a bandage underneath there. I also found that by laying it down on the town, I had a little bit more control over the foundation so that I can spread the glue a little bit easier. Whoops, got a little bit on the road. That's okay. And instead of putting it like directly on the center of the drawing, I wanted to go ahead and push it a little bit closer to the edge of town and basically give a little bit more space between buildings and the road. All right, it's okay. I'm spreading them out, and it's going to give me a bigger town square, and it's also going to give me voila. They're all done. Or all laid out. So now what I'm going to do is move these buildings off because they don't need to be there, and I'm going to put the wax paper down so that nothing gets stuck to it as I put weight on it. I took another board from my set, laid it on there, and then I grabbed one of my books and laid it on there for additional weight. To keep, and it's mainly just to keep the cork from coming up. It's already going to be fine. I probably don't need to do this step, but I did it anyway just to make sure. And then I'll leave that to dry for a half hour or so. I went ahead and got the flat gray primer out and the two textures that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the Vallejo Dark Earth and the AK Dark Earth. And these buildings I'm going to prime with a heirloom white, which is kind of like an eggshell. Heirloom white is it's an off-white. It's like a tinted white. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take this outside, and I'm going to spray it with the gray primer, just the foundations, which is supposed to be like a stone, maybe a concrete mix. Once it's sprayed, I'll bring it right back in. I should say I sprayed it and then I allowed it to dry a little bit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to apply texture for the road. And that's going to be the AK because it has a little bit more of a dried out grayish tint to it. The two dark earths are definitely not the same color. Now, using a brush, I just go ahead and paint it on the road wherever I want the road to be, which is basically going to be the part of the town that doesn't have any grass. It's basically just a T intersection. You could do whatever you want. You could just have a single road going through your town, or I even considered like a fountain in the middle of the town square, or I considered citizens walking around in the town, maybe some animals, some fences, some hedges, and all that good stuff is great if I was making a diorama, or if I was trying just to make a scenic event on the table. But I'm trying to make a playable wargaming piece where people can move troops through, they can fight into and out of, and shoot into and shoot out of. And it's not a skirmish game. This MeG is a formed units, and it matters where they are in the town. You don't just have like, once you enter the town, you're deployed. It matters where you're at. So if a unit is moving through, and the entire base is considered the town, not just the buildings. So as miniatures, because it's like I said, it's not a man-to-man. So as you move figures through the town, I needed the terrain pieces that are in the town to be able to be moved out of the way. And that's why I'm doing these foundations and not attaching the buildings to the board. Now each of these foundations has like, or each of the buildings have doorways or what have you. So what I'm doing is I'm creating like a little walkway from each of the buildings and the road. So up to where the door is on the building that will be sitting there. Some of the smaller buildings, the doorway's a little offset, but the larger buildings, the door is more in-centered. Now on that big building, the two-story building, I probably should have did a little bit of the roadway around the side of it, because it does have this side foyer. You know, it comes out the sides, but I wasn't thinking that. All right, let me clean my brush and I'll be right back. All right, and now we can do the dark brown. That's not the road. And I'm using the AK dark brown because it's got an extremely dark color. It's almost black. The camera and the lighting doesn't make it look like that. It makes it just look brown. But you'll notice as it dries, it really darkens up. And we try to get all the areas. I go ahead and go all the way to the edge. I'm covering every exposed piece of the MDF, trying to avoid the foundations and the road, but I make sure I also go right up to the edge of the foundation, and anywhere where the foundation and the road meet, I try to get right up inside there too. And of course, where another reason why I like doing this to the MDF, the entire MDF, and the beveled edge and everything, MDF has a tendency to soak up and absorb paint. Now right here at the doorway, when I'm trying to get between the road and the foundation, that worked just fine. But on some of these other areas, it's got a really tight, narrow gap, and I might get some of this brown on the foundation. And I thought about that as a happy accident, because once you get the brown on the foundation, in real life, the foundation could very easily get dirt on it, right? And that's basically what this under pavement, this texture paste is representing, the dirt underneath the foliage or underneath the grass, right? And it gives the grass and the texture something to grab onto, plus it seals the MDF as well. So like right here in this little narrow area, it's going to be hard to get to the door and not get too much on the road. And I paint a little bit onto the foundation, and that's okay, because that would be dirt that's gathered or built up onto the foundation. Same with that. Now I could have used a much smaller brush to get a little bit more accuracy, but I didn't feel it was necessary, because this is a terrain piece, and accidents or imperfections are the norm, right? You want to have imperfections on terrain, and so I didn't set out to have these imperfections, but when they occurred, I was very happy. Like I said, that was a happy accident. And there we go. We got the entire base covered. A little touch up, tidying up. All right, now I considered taking my finger and kind of like wiping off all the different brown that got on the foundations, but I didn't bother. Let's go ahead and clean the brush. Okay, the next step is I'm going to apply a scatter. This is scatter terrain. It's Flower Meadow is what the color is, and it's a knock brand. Because it's a scatter, that lets you know that it's a sawdust. I got the very thin. It's a very thin sawdust. Now I apologize that the camera, the way I'm holding it, you don't necessarily get to see me applying my Elmer's mixture, but I have about a 2-to-1 Elmer's to water mixture, and I'm making sure I cover an entire neighborhood. I've got this left, right, and the back neighborhood, so there's 3 quadrants or whatever. 3, that wouldn't be right, because you could have 4 different quadrants, so it would be 3 triumvirates, I don't know, but 3 neighborhoods, and I'm gonna completely cover everything but not the foundation again. I'm basically also decided that I'm just gonna do a 100% grass to the dark brown. I thought about putting it in splotches or patches, but because this is a Roman town and I wanted it to be very cultivated and manicured, So we went ahead and did a 100% coverage. And using the cup here, I sprinkle the flock on there. And I do it over this box because I don't want any spillage. And you might not be able to see this on the camera, but this Knock Flower Meadow is a light green color, but intermixed in this is some red and some yellow and some brown. So you'll see all these little pieces, but there's like a collection of odds and ends. And I think that's because they're trying to get like the flower effect, showing you that those are little flowers. But overall, you can't really tell. It just looks like a yard, a nice, clean, cultivated yard. All right, we're doing our second neighborhood here with the glue. And I did get a little glue on the road, which is fine. I guess I could have cleaned it off, but I didn't really notice it until I started laying the flock. So I just basically tried to avoid the glue that was on the road. You can kind of see it right there by the walkway. I'm wiping off some of the glue that's on the top of the foundation, but again, that would be fine if any of the it's not static grass, any of this foliage sticks to the top of the foundation. That would be fine, because there's like weeds, there would be grass growing, might even have vines or something like that growing up the side of ivy, growing up the side of a building. Well, I decided against worrying about all that. All right, and then we'll do the third neighborhood. Cover it completely. And you'll notice that I dump out just the excess, like the heavy excess. I don't shake it or knock it off or anything like that. I just basically tilt it up, and then I set that off to dry. So it's basically got a heavy coat on it, and I'm setting it on the wax paper inside the box. And I set that there and let it dry for about 30 minutes while I go clean this brush. All right, now you can see that the buildings have been painted, and the grass should be dry by now. So what I'm going to do is, now that the grass is dry, now I'm going to knock off all the excess. You can see it falling, but basically I'm tapping the base. I'll even flip it over and tap the bottom of it just so that the grass will fall. But that's not enough. So I grab my brush and I start, it's a very soft bristle brush, it's a makeup brush, and then I just clean everything off, and you can see how it's starting to come to life. Now I will also take this brush across the actual yard itself, because I'm sure there is some loose flock around, and I want to make sure that all of that comes off, because you don't need it coming off in the middle of a game or something like that. So I gently go across the grass. Knocking any loose foliage off. Anything that didn't actually get a chance to soak down into the glue, that's why I leave the flock on the base and let it dry in excess of what's necessary. Sometimes I'll just pile the glue on or pile the flock on and just let it dry like that, but it's so that it will soak in and adhere a lot better. Okay, we got the buildings painted, and I'm going to just go ahead and put those on there and show you what they're going to look like. Okay, so we lay the building, the town base out, and we put these buildings on their foundations. This set comes with 1 2-story, and then 2 long houses and 3 of the short houses. Yeah, there we go. And that's one of the long ones. Checking where the door was at. And there you go. And that's the town, right? And that way, if any troops move through, you can just pick the buildings up and adjust them. Now, I grabbed some figures because I want to show you what they look like in the town, or give you like a scale comparison. These are 15mm Roman cavalry, right? There's a 40mm wide base, and that gives you like going up the road through the town square. And then here's some infantry I got as well. Let's swap this cavalry out, just so you can kind of get a general idea of what it would look like. Scale-wise. See, now imagine I added some walls or some hedges. They would get in the way of troops that are moving. Now, this is me putting the troops up to the edge, but imagine the troops had deeper bases or additional bases. So you could just slide the building back and set it up just like that. Yeah, because it's not attached to the foundation. Alright, so here's a different angle. I'm going to put some troops down in the front. I'll put some cavalry on the other side. Again, just so you can get a scale. And of course it sticks to my finger cozy. And if you're interested in miniatures like this or terrain, buildings, etc., you can always contact or check out my store at eBay, ebay.com/str/wargaming and miniature. And if you need something built like this town or figures painted or anything, contact me at my email address. And thanks for coming out and checking this out, and I will catch you in the next video.